Hey, soccer fans, this is Nick with the Feed the Fire podcast, talking all things Chicago Fire and Major League Soccer. Thank you for tuning in again after the Chicago Fire's home opener, a 2-2 draw against Eastern Conference foe DC United on a frigid night on the lakefront at Soldier Field. I think kickoff temperature was like around 22, 25 degrees, maybe a couple degrees warmer than that once we got Mike McGee and Drew Connor in there, firing the crowd up, sounding the alarm. But it was a very, very cold night. The Fire's offense did take a little time to get going, but eventually they ended up with 2 goals in a 2-2 draw. We are going to recap that match. We are going to take a look at some scores around the league, and we're going to catch up on our Concacaf Champions Cup as well. But first, I want to thank everyone who's tuned in, who's listened, who's shared the show, who's emailed me, Facebooked me, tweeted at me, whatever it is. Last month was one of our best months on the podcast as far as number of listeners go. So thank you so much to everyone who is supporting the show and who continues to listen and spread the word of Feed the Fire. Again, thank you to Skira Icelandic Spring Water and to John Donovan for helping set up that partnership, who supports the show and allows us to do some fun stuff with some of the technology here, as well as, we're legit because we got a sponsor. It's pretty awesome. But putting all that aside, I want to take a look now at the Chicago Fire's home opener and just kind of go through my night, because I was at the game. If you don't know, I'm a season ticket holder, and I love taking my kids. I try to have family outings to the games, and one of the perks of the season ticket memberships is that you can roll games over within the same tier. So there's diamond, gold, and silver tier matches. The Miami match is the diamond match. There are 4 gold tier matches: LAFC, San Diego, and I forget the others offhand right now. And then the rest of the matches are silver matches. So you can kind of roll over tickets within that tier. And so I do try to roll some tickets over or grab a discount ticket and bring the family and bring some friends to games. And that's exactly what we did with this home opener. Got my 2 boys in the car, 8 and 6, picked up some fast food, headed down to Soldier Field, braved the traffic, braved the cold, had a great time in the tailgate there. And the boys were just like, "Can you close the trunk while we tailgate? It's a little chilly." I'm like, "All right, if that's what you guys want to do, that's fine." So there's definitely some funny pictures of them in the trunk and in blankets while we are eating our food before they open the gates. But then we were able to get into the stadium, wanted to get there early to see a new tradition that the Fire are doing, and I hope they do it every single match. I hope it wasn't just for the home match. Rolling out the red carpet, the team bus pulls up in front of the stadium, and the players are able to come out, walk up a red carpet into Soldier Field, lined on both sides by fans. We were fortunate enough to get in early, play some games, and still go get a prime spot on the inside of the gates there, where we got to high-five a lot of the players, get some good pictures. And it was really fun to see Mike McGee, Drew Connor lead the way in before all the other coaching staff, players, and Chicago Fire staff that were walking in as well. I did kind of feel a little weird because I see those guys and I remember them from their playing days, and I'm like, "Whoa, welcome back. Great to see you guys. Thank you for coming back and being here." And other people are like, "What's this guy yelling about? Who are these 2 dudes in plain clothes?" So definitely a little bit of a generational gap for the Fire fans there. But I did tweet out the fantastic timeless video of Mike McGee's day off, a Ferris Bueller day off parody of using Chicago Fire and MLS players. So go find that and check it out, and you'll get to know a little bit of Mike McGee's off the field persona. But it was cool seeing him. It was cool seeing Drew O'Connor. It was great having the players come in. I got a great shot of my son high-fiving Chris Brady as they walk in. And I think if they keep this tradition going, I think it's only going to build. I think more people are going to know about it and hear about it. A lot of people lined up outside, and maybe you didn't know that you could line up inside as well, right below the stairs around the season ticket member entrance on the south side of the field. So it was really cool. You get to see the players up close. You get to get some high fives, great pictures, video, real fun experience. Kudos to the Chicago Fire organization for doing that and for putting it together. And it's just another way to connect from the team, from the organization, down to the fans. And I think it's a really cool thing. We got to go around and play a bunch of the games, which was a lot of fun. I had to kind of talk my kids out of, like, guys, you don't need the anti-gambling swag. You don't need the 1-800-GAMBLER keychains and belly bags and things, but they love their swag. They love walking around and seeing how much stuff they can get. I think we got about 82 koozies last season. We'll see if we can top that number this year as some more of the sponsors come out and the weather gets nicer and more things are being thrown around at the tailgates. But that was the pre-match festivities. It was a lot of fun, always a good atmosphere despite the cold. We got to see the sounding alarm, and I'll tell you, Mike McGee and Drew Connor look like the Bash Brothers from the Mighty Ducks, coming out, high-fiving people, smashing the glass with the axe, pulling down on the fire alarm. Let's go, let's go. I think there were some other adjectives that McGee added into the let's go, getting the crowd pumped up before the match, and then, of course, the Vamos fire. It was really, really good time pre-match. Everyone was buzzed. It was cold, but there was an energy buzzing about because of the home opener and because of how these guys are getting the crowd fired up. The supporter section was going. It was great until about 4 minutes into the match, and that's when Christian Benteke opens the scoring. Just a complete breakdown on the defense. I thought this would be something that the Chicago Fire would have addressed in the last week, because when you give up 4 goals in a game, there are defensive lapses, and we saw the defensive lapses last week against Columbus. So many breakdowns, players driving right at the defenders, miscommunication, not knowing who to switch off on, things of that nature, and generally just not being comfortable playing with each other. Wanting Chris Brady to be more vocal, which I think he was tonight. By the way, Chris Brady's performance, I was kind of surprised to see a keeper who gives up 2 goals is named into the MLS Team of the Week. He is the starting keeper, top keeper of the week. And despite giving up 2 goals, where is his saves numbers here? Ended up with 5 saves on the night, including 2 huge ones to deny Benteke in that match, and just some acrobatic saves. So I think it was very deserving. And I love the fact that we've had Brian Gutierrez on the Team of the Week in week 1. We have Chris Brady on Team of the Week, week 2. And by the way, Hugo Cuypers was on the bench for Team of the Week with his 2 goals in this game. So like I said, Benteke gets things going in the 4th minute, kind of dampers the mood. And that's when people are like, oh yeah, maybe it is kind of cold. Maybe it is kind of miserable outside when that first goal went in. But it was Hugo Cuypers who gets the equalizer in the 30th. Then also gets the go-ahead goal in the 71st. Very similar goals coming in from corners. Philip Zinckernagel is going to be the set piece guy. It looks like he's been taking all the corners and most of the set pieces over the last 2 matches this season. And he's got a decent delivery. I still personally don't like to see a lot of the near post corner play. I'd like to see it put out like between the PK spot and the 6-yard box. Make the keeper have to make a decision. But on the second goal, it was played to perfection. Near post corner, Jack Elliott makes the run, flicks it onto the far post where Cuypers is unmarked, and just puts it in. So great play, great execution. Again, it looks great when it works, but I don't know if there's any sort of statistics out there that would show the higher probability of scoring a near post corner versus one, as I call it, putting it in the mixer right in the middle of the box and letting your big guys go up and get it, or maybe trying to run a play in the middle of the box or in the far post, something like that. So I would love to see if anyone has any data on that. That would be some really detailed investigations done there. But they get the 2 goals. Cuypers does his part, and what's great is he gets the goal in the 71st and then gets subbed out immediately after that. So it was great to see him increase his match fitness and be very effective between the first and second game, where the first game he was doing a lot of work off the ball, didn't have a lot of goal scoring opportunities, only played the first half. Now we see him doing everything. He was a complete player for 71 minutes, getting rewarded with 2 goals. And we see how Bamba and Zinckernagel are trying to find him more and more when he's up top. But then in true Fire fashion, they give up a goal on the last kick of the game, 90+6. Just a beautiful bike by Morel, and just lofts it in one of those crazy high arcing balls to go to the far post corner where Brady can't get a hand on it. For all the magic that Brady had during this match, couldn't pull out that last save. But once again, we see a man at the top of the box left completely unmarked, as especially coming off of a set piece. I don't think it was a direct No, it wasn't a direct corner kick. I think the ball kind of got knocked around, and it was the second ball into the box, I believe. But still, you have a guy at the top of the box who's like open enough and confident in his abilities and being so open to take a bicycle kick. So definitely a defensive breakdown on that one. That is going to be something that the Fire are going to have to shore up, because they can't win games with 2 goals. And I don't know if they're going to be scoring 3, 4, and 5 goals in games this season. So they're going to have to shore up the defense. Now we're going to go through the lineup and the stats, and there's going to be there could be some excuses there, and I don't want to say this is the same old Fire. And I know I just kind of said it a minute ago, but that's kind of the feeling in the stadium. You know, especially, oh my gosh, guys, the other major play shortly, but it was the 88th minute. So not even 10 minutes before that equalizer was scoring on the last kick of the game. Handball in the box, intentional handball in the box, yellow card given to the Chicago Fire defender on that one. I think it was Rogers. And Benteke steps up, and I'm looking around the stadium, and I connect with one of my other season ticket members in section 205, Israel, friend of the show here. We connect, we look at each other, and we're just like, really? Really? Could we have not seen this coming? Is this really how it's going to happen? But I have to say, you know, my sons were getting upset. My cousin came and sat with us with a buddy of his, and we're all talking and like, oh, this is going and this is going. Guys, it's okay. Benteke is going to try and shoot high. He's going to shoot high. It's going to hit the crossbar. But you know what? He ended up shooting it even higher than the crossbar, put it into the north end zone stands. What an awful PK. And you had Brady so fired up. I couldn't believe that DC had it within them. That shows some character on that part. Like, their star player, their golden boot winner from last season, skies the game-tying PK 2 minutes before stoppage time, and they still are able to come back and find the equalizer on the last kick of the game. Now, let's take a look at the lineup, and maybe we'll give a little more insight into why there were some of these defensive lapses. Now, your starters in the typical 4-3-3 fashion that I think we're going to get used to seeing here with Berhalter. You had Chris Brady in net, going from left to right. Gutman, Rogers, Elliott, and Dean. Your central midfielders, Acosta, Orahel, and Sam Williams. Your attacking midfielder, or your attacking players, Jonathan Bamba, Hugo Cuypers, and Philip Zinckernagel. Now, Carlos Terán was actually announced over the loudspeaker as being a starter. However, he picked up a knock in warmups and did not play in this game. So hopefully this is not another Carlos Terán ankle injury that's going to keep him out for 6-8 weeks. Hopefully this is a completely precautionary move and that he'll be fit to play in the next match. I was really excited to see how he matched up against Benteke. I remember the home match against DC last season. Terán did a pretty good job, and Terán was having fun with the challenge. He and Benteke were actually kind of smiling and laughing and probably trading some trash talk a little bit. It looked like they were having fun playing against each other, and it looked like Terán was up for the challenge last season, and I was really hoping that he would be able to lock down Benteke again, because you saw that's DC's plan. They're going to push up the wings. They're going to cross it in the middle to Benteke, who has one of the highest rates of winning aerial duels in the league last season and already this season. And so with Terán having his height and physical stature, would have been able to do a better job, I think, than any other Chicago Fire defender in marking Christian Benteke. Now, Sam Rogers did all right, considering he was a last-second start. Did all right. And I'm just going to say it like that, because you have now your back line, 2 of your 4 projected starters, right? Gutman and Elliott. You want Terán starting. You want Barroso starting. However, you got 2 of your 4 in the back there, and you've got to have better communication. You've got to have better structure for that. But then you also have a defensive midfielder in Sam Williams making his first ever MLS start, someone they just picked up from the Red Bulls 2 organization and signed to a short-term deal to bring him up and have him play in this match. The Chicago Fire had 9 first-team players listed as out for this match. And coming off the bench, you had Mauricio Pineda, Omar Gonzalez, Tom Barlow, Amari Glasgow, Jeff Gall in net, Justin Reynolds, Harold Osorio, and Christopher Cupps. Those are the guys available off the bench. So we didn't see Chris Mueller again off the bench. So I don't know if he's still taking time with his newborn baby, family time, or if the Chicago Fire really don't see him in the plans and are having him kind of get shopped around and see if they can't find a deal for him as well. So those were the starters. You would typically expect to see, like I said, Tehran, Barroso, and Gutierrez in this lineup. However, given everything that was going on, given the fact that they gave up a fourth-minute goal, you want to look on the bright side of it, they battled back and took the lead. And they were within, as people were saying, within seconds of winning this game. But we've criticized the back line enough, and we've criticized or we've pointed out the fact that they haven't had time to gel and work as a team. But here's the other criticism from this match. The substitutions. Now, if you look at the website on MLSsoccer.com and you pull up the game summary, it still has the club finishing in a 4-3-3. But that is definitely not how they played it on the field. Because we saw 5 substitutions in this match. Again, we know Barlow comes in for Cuypers up top, and we know Glasgow comes in for Zinckernagel to continue to have a little bit of offense. But all the other subs were defense. You saw Harold Osorio make his MLS debut. You saw Omar Gonzalez make his Chicago Fire debut. And you saw Mauricio Pineda come in. All solid defensive players, and you saw the Chicago Fire go into a defensive mode. And despite everything we've been hearing about wanting to play a more possession-based game or wanting to hurt the opponents the best way they can, the Chicago Fire, during these substitutions, went very, very defensively. And let me see if I can pull the actual time of these substitutions to kind of give you a sense of the game flow here. So yeah, all the Chicago Fire substitutions came after Cuypers' goal in the 71st minute. Zinckernagel and Barlow came in the 72nd. Pineda and Gonzalez came in the 84th. And then you saw Osorio come in for Acosta in 90 minutes plus 2. And I would have kind of liked to see Acosta finish that game out. Maybe they wanted to put fresh legs in to match the DC United sub in the 85th minute. Zuhair, I just wonder if you needed Acosta out there as some sort of senior leadership presence on this team. You know, the captain gets subbed out in stoppage time. Maybe you're better off keeping him in the match to help try and see it out. Maybe keep the team organized, maybe do some of his Kellen Acosta shenanigans and CONCACAFing. You saw him try and do that during the penalty kick and try and throw off Benteke. You've seen him do it throughout his career. You've seen him do it here in Chicago already. So maybe if you're going to criticize a substitution, and I get it, you want young, fresh legs in there to try and run that game out and keep the pressure on DC. But maybe in this moment, for this Fire team, who does not know how to win, who does not know how to see games out yet, you needed to have Kellen Acosta stay in for those last 4 or 5 minutes. And that's something that I think Greg Berhalter is going to have to think long and hard about in how he works his substitution patterns in the future and what is the makeup of his team. Now, again, maybe this is all a moot point once the team gets healthy again, but are you ever going to have a fully healthy team for long stretches of an MLS season? That's not just Chicago, that's throughout the whole league. I don't know. We've already seen Messi get put on load management, and they've only played 2 regular season games, I think 4 in total. So it's not something that you can rely on, and that's something being having your full starters for long stretches of the season, especially when we get into U.S. Open, Cup, Leagues Cup, etc., etc. So this is something Berhalter has to figure out and has to really look into. Now, looking at it from a statistical standpoint, the Fire ended up with 40% possession, about 41% possession, more than their first game against Columbus, but still conceding a lot of possession to DC in this match. They had 11 shots, 4 on goal, compared to 19 shots, 6 on goal for DC. The defense blocked 2 shots. They had 401 passes at a 76.1% passing accuracy. So you want to see that be improved upon. You want to see a team with a passing accuracy at least in the 80% and ideally in the high 80 percentile if you're dominating possession. The Fire ended up with 5 corner kicks, so they finished the Frank. Everyone gets a free Portillo's hot dog. But again, DC ended up with 10 corner kicks and 10 total crosses to the Fire's 5 corners and 3 crosses. So were the Fire trying to get it down into the wings? Were they trying to play more direct? I think the Fire were just trying to do whatever the opportunity presented themselves at the time, because DC controlled most of this game. The Fire did outduel DC in the air 21-18, so kind of nullifying some of Benteke's stature there and his aerial prowess, but I'm sure he won the vast majority, if not all, of his aerial duels. Here's what's exciting if you buy into this sort of thing. The Fire had a 3.4 expected goal statistic. So if you take all their shots, assign them the percentage of likelihood that they're going to score, the Fire should have scored 3.4 goals this match. Now, DC had 3.8, but a penalty kick is anywhere between 0.8 and 0.95 expected goals, depending on which algorithm and service and system that you're using. So if you take away that PK, you're looking at more of a closer to a 3 or a 2.8 kind of XG for DC United. Still not very good from the Fire from a defensive standpoint. Brady was credited with 5 saves. The defense had 12 clearances, 13 fouls, 1 yellow card. So a fairly clean game. And that yellow card was for an intentional handball in the box. Go back and find the replay. Rogers just reaches in and swats down the cross. I can't say if that was a smart choice. I understand making tactical fouls in the middle or attacking third of the field and taking a yellow card there, but I don't know, man. I think if you're swatting balls away like that in the box, that's the risk reward there, I think, is a lot worse than the tactical fouls outside of the box, because you're giving up a PK. And again, how often is Benteke going to completely miss the frame of goal on a PK there? So that was the statistics. The DC controlled long stretches of this game. If you want the 5-minute breakdowns, the Chicago Fire only controlled 3 5-minute segments throughout the course of this match. So not a good statistical game from the Fire, not a good just asserting yourselves dominance, tactical performance from the Fire. But in the end, they get their draw, still looking for the first victory under Greg Berhalter. One other thing I want to point out, and then we're going to get into John Donovan's recap of the evening, is the relationship between Philip Zinckernagel and Jonathan Dean. And I've always been high on Jonathan Dean as a player for the Chicago Fire. They get him at an absolute bargain. A guy who's a competent MLS defender. And if that's his ceiling, fine. The fact is, though, with the injuries, he's had to play a lot more minutes and get a lot more starts than I think the organization anticipated or would have liked over the last 3 seasons here. So Jonathan Dean was not on the same page as Philip Zinckernagel. And I don't know who's wrong or who's right or who's making the right runs or who is making the wrong passes between the two. But you saw Zinckernagel barking at Dean on more than one occasion during this match. And so there's absolutely a miscommunication going on between those two players. There's absolutely they're not on the same page in how they want to play. So is that Zinckernagel falling into old habits from prior teams? Is that Jonathan Dean not stepping his game up to match Zinkernagel's level? Are either of them playing within the Berhalter system that we want to see? That's going to take some more film study to see. But you absolutely noticed Zinckernagel barking at Dean a few times throughout this match. And again, I think Jonathan Dean is a bargain from the salary, a competent MLS defender. Shouldn't be a guy starting the majority of your games. You're going to be conceding goals. He is going to get picked on. You saw the opposing teams last year pick on his side of the field when he was in. He's a little undersized to match up physically with some wingers and strikers in this league. And if it's going to come down to who do I want to have starting, Philip Zinckernagel or Jonathan Dean, if it ever gets to that point where it's like they can't work together, are we going to have to flip sides? Are we going to have to keep one as a sub? Zinckernagel is going to win out every time. Your first big signing under Greg Berhalter, a winger, Danish winger from Club Brugge, who's got experience and who's won a title, I think, in Belgium. That shows me that there's something still missing from this roster and maybe a little bit from this locker room. So as much as we were hoping the Fire would end up, a top 6, top 7 team in the Eastern Conference this year, there's still work to be done on the roster. We know that, but there's still work to be done tactically and within the locker room. So that's something to keep an eye on going forward. The relationship between Zinckernagel and Dean, and say Zinckernagel, Bamba, Kwame, these guys with some of the players who've been on the team for a couple, 3 years, and how that style transition changes. All right, we are very thrilled here to welcome back John Donovan to the show, giving you his breakdowns after the Chicago Fire matches each and every week. And John Donovan's segment, our water break here, brought to you by Skira Icelandic Spring Water. Skira is Icelandic for clear. The water comes from a natural spring in Iceland in a government-protected nature preserve. It's fantastic water. It's good water. I've said it last season. I went to Iceland a couple years ago. They have a sign in the hotel that I stayed at that said, "Please drink our tap water. We are not giving you bottled water. 1, for the environment, save on the plastic, and 2, our water is so clear and pure, being filtered through all of the volcanic rocks and volcanic soil in Iceland, that you can drink our tap water. It's as good as any bottled water you're going to get." So go out, get yourself some Skira Icelandic Spring Water at your local 7-Eleven. And now, John, take it away.
The lack.
Oh, we're having some difficulties here with John's segment. Hang on one second. We'll get it queued up. Coming at you.
Nick, John Donovan here talking about the MLS and the Chicago Fire. Nick, we had a really exciting game in town. Saturday evening, the Fire played DC United. And, it's always a pretty good game, but you had some superstars on this field. You had Benteke, Cuypers, Acosta. I just thought I'm getting a better vibe from this team than I've ever gotten for the last 15 years. Our new coach seems to really be spreading out the wealth. And what I really like about the MLS is youth and speed. And that's what you get when you start using these homegrown players. Watching Oriel out there, I thought was wonderful. He seems to be, I watched him, I really focused on him as a center mid, and he's starting to play like he belongs out there. Center mids always have to be available for that second pass, and he just kept looking for that shot. So very pleased the way the Fire is starting to play our homegrown players. If anybody has to wonder about playing homegrown, look at Philly. I watched a little bit of the Philadelphia game Saturday night. They started a little bit earlier, and they were smooth, good. This is a team with a lot of homegrowns. This young man named Sullivan and his brother are superstars in the making. I really picked out Sullivan, the boy playing now for Philly, as the next Landon Donovan. That's how much I think of this kid. He is real smooth. So what we're seeing this year with the Fire is our coach using our homegrown players. I had the opportunity to go by the new training center off of Ashland Avenue, and holy mackerel, is it beautiful. I mean, and it's right in the middle of Pilsen. It's going to be such a joy for the community to have these soccer stars playing right in their backyard. I can't think of a better spot in the city of Chicago for that. But jumping back to the difference in this squad, we're playing a 4-3-3, which is a pretty simple system. We're not playing 3 in the back, which we couldn't do. We're not doing things that are new every game. We seem to be, only 2 games in, but we're repeating the same formation. Cuypers had a heck of a game. I mean, players are playing their own positions. They're not being moved around. And that's the strength of a team. Now, Terran was out this game. Must have been some injury during practice. Nick, you said something to me about that. And a young man by the name of Rogers stepped in. And honest to Lord, he had to guard Benteke, one of the most lethal guys in the league. And I thought he did a fairly good job. I think that Down the middle, we're still struggling. Elliott's trying to figure out the fire. I think Brady is really trying to figure out these guys. So that's a work in development. But, unlike in the past, our midfield has, I think we've got a good future, especially when Gutierrez gets back in there with Oriel and Acosta. I really like our chances. And then on the forward line, this man Bamba, my Lord, he's an addition. I will go out and say in the last 15 years, he's the best DP we have even come close to signing. He's quick. He hits the open man. He especially hits the midfielders that are coming down on a rush. It's a beautiful thing to see him play. I really enjoy it. Now, on the other side, the guy with the hard name, Hindermakel, I wonder about him. As of yet, he doesn't show the speed that you need in this league to separate yourself from those wingers. That winger, the DC winger, had his number. I will be happy when our Ethiopian Haile Selassie gets back. He has the speed to separate, and he never really had a good option of midfielders feeding him. So we'll have to see. But overall, the lack of, dare I say it, Klopas and the Klopas ambience on the field is such a relief, guys. Years ago, I know I've said this before, Chris Rolfe told me it only takes 3 games for Klopas to lose the locker room. And look what we've seen in the last couple of years. But this year, I just have hope. I can see where tactically we're making good moves, well-trained. I think we had some problems in the center of defense, but that'll be worked out. We've still got another DP, remember. It'll be interesting to see whether we use the one DP or 2 young guys. But, folks, I think we're going to have a good summer. I really am looking forward to this team. So, Nick, thank you for this opportunity. And if, Mike, you're still listening, keep listening. Bye, guys. Nick, John Donovan here talking about the MLS and the Chicago.
All right, John, thank you so much for your segment, and thank you to our listeners for, first of all, bearing with me trying to figure out how we're splicing in some of this data here and putting the sound clips in on StreamYard. But also thank you again, John, for your insight, your analysis. For those of you who don't know, who are maybe new to the show, John's been contributing some bits and clips and segments since we've started the Feed the Fire podcast 3 seasons ago. And he actually played professionally in Venezuela for a number of years. And after his soccer career came back and has become a very successful businessman here in the Chicago area. So John brings a really unique insight and perspective into looking at the Chicago Fire. And I love hearing his kind of scouting of some of the younger players and homegrowns and what he sees in the matches. So, John, thank you for this segment. Again, looking forward to the next one after the next match. I agree with you. I want to just build on the Zinckernagel thing. Like, I already talked about how Zinckernagel and Dean weren't meshing at all, to the point where it was noticeably frustrating for Zinckernagel. And you said he may not have the speed. And if you remember during the game against Columbus in that opener, it was a just terrible move by Zinckernagel, who turns away from the press and dribbles back towards his own goal, turns the ball over, and leads directly to a Columbus goal. I wonder if that was the one, Rossi, that where he just dribbled in and shot, or if it was another one. But Zinckernagel has had a couple of errors this year that have led to some opportunities by the opposition. And it's when he gets caught up in the middle of the field, I think. I do remember him coming in and getting turned over in that Columbus game right in the middle of the pitch, just on the Chicago Fire side of the field. So if he can stay wide, and if he can continue to be a wide player, link up a little bit with the wing backs and with some of the midfielders, work a 1-2 combo, or be an outlet. And I think that's part of the frustration is, in Berhalter, what he likes to see. He likes to see some of those long diagonal balls, something you have to play in MLS and in the modern game today. And if Zinckernagel stays wide, then he'll be able to get those long balls from Barroso or Gutman. However, he has no relationship with Jonathan Dean, it looks like, and He wants to be pushing forward, and he wants to get involved in the plays a little bit more, which sees him getting pulled inside and out of position, and then allowing an opposing player, an opposing midfielder, to mark two Chicago Fire players at one time. And that allows, obviously, the free opposing player to press, to intercept passes, to turn over the Chicago Fire and that. So Zinckernagel got to be a little bit more disciplined, but they've got to build as a team a better relationship between the back line and your attackers and how you get that transition. So well said, John. Again, thank you so much for the contributions. All right, as we move into the second half of the show, just to kind of recap the results from the weekend and see anything that sort of stands out, we had Charlotte with a 2-0 victory over Atlanta. Amazing debut by Wilfred Zaha, formerly of Crystal Palace, goal and an assist for him. Salt Lake defeats Seattle 2-0. That's an interesting result, considering a lot of people are think of Seattle as a top 3 or 4 team in the Western Conference right now. Columbus goes to New England and comes back with a 1-0 win. The Red Bulls with a 2-0 victory over Nashville. Orlando, a 4-2 victory over Toronto at home. The Union, this was the surprising result. The Philadelphia Union, the team who's in rebuild, the team who gave away all their best players. Jack McGlynn's now in Houston. Kevin Sullivan's just waiting to get to Europe. All these other things going on. They got rid of Jim Curtin. Philadelphia Union to win at home against Cincinnati 4-1. Great game for the Union. Statement game for the Union. I'm not gonna put them back in the top 6 of the Eastern Conference just yet. They've only done it for 2 weeks, but that's something that has people rethinking their projections on the Philly team. Kansas City falls at home to San Jose 2-1. There's another surprise. San Jose with 2 victories out the gate. And I'll tell you, in my MLS independent media content creator chat on Twitter, the Quakes podcaster there said, "Wow, I feel bad for the Fire. This is tough." And like, wait, Quakes fans are feeling bad for Chicago? Did we reach the new low here, Chicago Fire fans, where San Jose is off to a 2-game win streak to open the season? The Fire have 1 point, and like, are they looking to hand off the wooden spoon to us already? It felt like a new low, having a Quakes fan feel sorry for us. Anyway, we continue on. The Loons from Minnesota get a 1-0 victory over Montreal. Colorado and Dallas play to a 3-3 draw, some goals out west. LAFC defeats New York City 1-0. Portland beats Austin 1-0. San Diego plays a scoreless draw to St. Louis. And then on Sunday, the Whitecaps with a great 2-1 victory over an LA Galaxy team who's still probably a little distracted by their postseason comments of, your roster rules are terrible, your salary cap rules are terrible, we won the championship, and we have to get rid of players, this is ridiculous. Vancouver making a statement now in the Western Conference with that 2-1 victory there. Miami goes to Houston. Messi does not go to Houston, and Houston decides to give away free tickets to anyone who's at this game. They're getting a free ticket to another match in Houston. Again, nice fan relations there by the club. We saw the Chicago Fire do similar things over the last couple of seasons when Messi has not appeared at Soldier Field. But it's sad still that the Dynamo have to say, like, we don't control. They put a statement out that said, we don't control the opposing players that come here, but for everyone who wanted and bought tickets to come to see Messi play, we'll give you guys another ticket to another Houston Dynamo game. Contact the box office for details, contact the club for details. So what's interesting, as we said, Messi's already on load management after 4 games this season. I don't know if that bodes well for him coming to Chicago. I hope he does. I don't think I'll be able to be there to see him. So hopefully I can make a few dollars back on reselling my tickets. But the fact is, Messi hasn't played in Chicago. And that is something that as a league, you are upset about. If I am Don Garber and the people running Major League Soccer, you have the greatest of all time. You have this record-breaking deal. You've done like everything right so far with Messi, and now he's on a load management during game 2 of your regular season. That's got to be concerning. And he hasn't played in one of your biggest, I'll say Chicago's still biggest market, right? TV market, soccer watching audiences, people who will turn out 60,000 plus, as many as Soldier Field can fit. Saw that 2 years ago. will turn out for it. That's got to hurt. But didn't hurt their performance during that match. Miami wins it convincingly 4-1. They were up 4-0. Nico Ladero, Houston's new acquisition from Orlando, previously Seattle, ends up getting a consolation goal for the Dynamo there. And real quickly, let's recap our Champions Cup bracket. A little longer of an episode here tonight than I would have liked, everyone. Late, a lot going on. A lot of soccer, though. It's fun to talk about. Maybe we'll get into Concacaf a little bit more here as the next round matchups kick off. But we are seeing the Columbus Crew against LAFC. They will be playing on March 4th, their first match. And March 6th, we're seeing Cavalry play Miami. We have Monterrey taking on Vancouver. And then we have, I want to make sure I get this club correct. I cannot figure out what club this is. Sorry, who's playing against Pumas. It's one of the Central American clubs playing against Pumas there. Sorry, I don't recognize the logo, and the website isn't as intuitive to get the teams up. It's Alajuelense. There we go. Had to do a little quick clicking while I stalled for time there. Could you tell? So Alajuelense, Costa Rican club, taking on Pumas. On the other side of the bracket, you have Club America taking on Chivas and Cruz Azul taking on Seattle. So at first I was like, oh, that stinks. There's 3 MLS clubs in one quarter of the bracket. Well, here's 3 Liga MX clubs in this particular quarter of the bracket. So we'll see who emerges out of that one: America, Chivas, Cruz Azul, or Seattle. And then in the final quarter of the bracket, you have Tigres taking on Cincinnati, and the Galaxy will be taking on Herediano. I hope that the Galaxy can kind of shake off their MLS struggles early on here. 0-2 to start the season, and suck it up for Champions League. I would love to see a Galaxy Cincinnati matchup in that quarterfinal round, in that quarterfinal round. I'd love to see Seattle advance out of Cruz Azul if we can, and I would love to see Miami end up taking on LAFC or the Crew. The Crew just signed another attacking midfielder, so they're still bolstering their roster. I hope he's eligible for CONCACAF Champions Cup here. And then it would be great if Vancouver can continue being the upset kids and take out Monterrey, but I don't see that happening. We'll probably see Monterrey emerge as a semifinalist from their quadrant. We'll probably see Miami emerge as the semifinalist from their quadrant. We know that they're resting Messi for this tournament. They want to win this tournament. And then on the other side, I haven't seen a lot of Liga MX form so far, but I would hope that Seattle can at least put a game up, and then maybe America Cruz Azul comes out of their quadrant. And I'd love to see the Galaxy or Cincinnati come out of their quadrant if they can get past Tigres. So that's the update on CONCACAF Champions Cup. That's all things going on with the Chicago Fire. I want to thank you all for tuning in once again. Please continue to grow the show, share the show, talk about it. Find me at the home games. Email me, glasshousesoccer@gmail.com, and follow along at Glasshouse Soccer on all social media platforms. I want to thank you all again. Thank you to the Fire for a great opening weekend. Thank you to John Donovan for his segment, for Skira for being our sponsor. But most of all, thank you all for tuning in and watching on YouTube or listening wherever you get your podcasts. Let's go Fire.